you check the children?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Well, hello there, right fans. Welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Jaime and Fuego, and so very stoked to be finally presenting a review here on the channel of the directorial debut, if I'm not mistaken, or at least feature debut of the progeny, the spawn, hellspawn, of none other than George Romero, his daughter Tina Romero, and the film put out entitled Queens of the Dead. So George Romero, obviously the godfather of the zombie genre, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, to a lesser degree, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, I think was his last one. So, but yeah, I mean, Tina comes from a really awesome pedigree. I'm not gonna throw out a particular pronoun because I don't know what the preference is there. But this is one that I have been trying to see for a while because it's been making its rounds on the festival circuit, and it got a significant amount of buzz. I knew that it was much more on the horror comedic side compared to the seriousness of a lot of Tina's father's work. But yeah, finally got the chance to see it because it is currently in theaters, I believe, for just a limited run. But I went out to my AMC, checked it out, man. And here on the Horror Show, we always like to do overall thoughts. We also do, just a little bit of the story without spoiling things, acting, and then some, discussion about makeup and, just the filmmaking aspects, production design, practical effects, things of that nature. So overall thoughts. This film was pretty fabulous from a funny standpoint, less from a horror standpoint, because it is very much more on the Shaun of the Dead inspired by the work of Romero, and much more on the comedic side of things as opposed to on the horror side of things. This flick doesn't really bring a lot of gore. It's much more so on the glitz and the glamour side of things, which, being a zombie movie that has, it's basically set at, Club Yum, I think is what they're calling it, set at a drag show, or at least there is a drag show that Katie O'Brien and some of her proteges are putting on. We saw Katie O'Brien in Love Lies Bleeding with K-Stu, and she was terrific in that. She's a kick-ass actress. I hope she prefers to be referred to as a she or her. But yeah, in any event, man, yeah, Katie was great in that. And while she is part of a ensemble in this, there's a lot of other characters within this. But yeah, Katie's character, Dre, I should specify, is the one who has I'll get into it in the story, but more so than anything, man, I really have a soft spot for just drag in general because of the fact that I worked in the neighborhood here in the Phoenix metro area, like around Melrose and everything, for a number of years at a very just queer-friendly hotel based on just the events that we would put on and things of that nature. So I haven't worked there in a number of years, but I just get very sentimental for that environment and just the essence of acceptance and just, pushing artistry and performance to really impressive levels that you don't always see in, kind of the straight sector of things. And so overall thoughts, it doesn't work as well as a horror movie for me. It brings barely any gore. I wasn't super into the zombie makeup effects, but they are overshadowed by the makeup and the costuming and just the performative nature of the entire ensemble, because everybody in this movie, every actor, every performer, to be a little more neutral with my terminology, was great. Like, seriously awesome. And well developed as well, because Tina co-wrote this with another person. I wish I had, I want to say Aaron something, but I don't want to, just throw myself under the bus. But so Tina also co-wrote this, and every character, even the supporting ones, were very well developed. Aside from a B story that I guess, but so yeah, my overall thoughts, despite not working with an insane budget, I thought that so much was done with the funds that were available, and it's primarily a one location film, but yeah, I had a blast with this. It was a lot of fun, much more funny than scary, but yeah, a comedy horror. It's not a horror comedy, if that makes a little bit more sense. But so, anyway. So, Dre, who is played by Katie O'Brien, as I mentioned, is putting on an event which seems, based on all of the imagery and the fact that, Dre has these bunny balloons, like, early on, at the very beginning, when the audiences catch up with the character. I'm pretty sure this is happening around Easter, or on Easter, and we even see there's a Jesus-looking priest early on that this one queen is meeting at the very beginning of the film, which is kind of the inciting incident, I guess. But so there is an outbreak that starts in our opening scene, and then it's slowly spreading throughout New York, and the Club Yum, I believe, is in Brooklyn, and so you have a myriad in everybody who's at the club, a very just amusing characters. My personal favorite character is not one of the main ones. My favorite character, I believe, goes by Scrumptious. But kind of the dealer of this, of I guess a lot of the performers in this particular just drag scene in Brooklyn, and that yet lives in Queens, and I'm not familiar with the nuances of all the boroughs and everything, but yeah, so Scrumptious is great, but Dre is the DJ, I guess, the person who is putting together a lot of the music along with it. Then so Dre is married to I forget the name of the character, but it is the taller, blonder half of Garfunkel and Oates, and so she, because as attempting to have a baby, and because Dre and her character, who works at a hospital, are trying to become parents. And then we have the character of Sam, or should we say Samanse, who used to be involved in the scene and now works with Dre's wife at the hospital and doesn't perform anymore as Samanse Beyonce. You know what I'm referencing right here. But so as the zombie outbreak begins happening, we have basically our A story and our B story. The A story is Dre with the other performers at Club Yum, and then the B story is about a transitioning character that Sam is assisting with, just after an overdose, getting properly fluided up, and obviously in the midst of transition, an immune system is getting worked pretty heavily, and so things like oxys and whatever are probably gonna diminish that sort of alterations and whatnot. And so the B story is essentially Dre's wife, the Garfunkel and Oates lady, and the transitioning character trying to get from the hospital to meet back up with Dre in the club. My only criticism about the story, really, that didn't work as well for me, was the fact that the B story with the transitioning character and Dre's wife trying to get to the Club Yum, it was kind of underdeveloped and underserved, and at times actually felt unnecessary, because I was a lot more engaged, amused, and everything by the collective of characters at the club, because despite the stuff that starts happening, there's kind of a, hey, we're going to ignore this, whatever. Even in the face of facts that, certain performers that Dre had, on the bill to take part in this event that night, they're blowing it off. And this is where, from the writing, I have to say, George would be proud of Tina, because of the fact that something that George had in all of his films was that subtext, the social commentary, whether it was consumerism in Dawn of the Dead, that's maybe the one, racism, obviously, in the original Night of the Living Dead. So, and this actually has some similarities to Diary of the Dead in the fact that everything, must be, filmed and documented and everything, because that was kind of a found footagey sort of thing, where Tina, with the writing in this, would have made Papa Romero proud, is the fact that there is, the subtext here is the addiction to our devices, and the fact that our smartphones, these little fuggers here, we are so addicted to these things, and we're almost like zombies when we are locked in to these things, and just constantly on them, constantly having to live stream things, constantly having to, I have a scheduled post about the event tonight and everything. And so that's where it didn't become as apparent to me until the third act, when a lot of the zombies actually get into the club and everything, and how, without spoiling too much, maybe you can get out of an attack situation with a certain type of distraction. So that was where I was just like, okay, Tina and the co-writer they didn't just use the Romero name. Now, granted, there's a couple cameos. There is even a mention of Dad in this film. It's a little fourth wall breaking, a little on the nose for me. I'm not sure if that necessarily needed to be in there. But as a whole, I really, really love the writing. And the writing ties in with the performances, because everybody is really, really funny in this. Aside from the B story, about the transitioning character and Dre's wife, who I didn't find very funny. That's where we tried to have like a little more angst, a little more drama, and based on the sheer hilarity of the A story, especially, man, so Dre's wife, her straight brother, has a lot of laughs that are brought into play with his character, because he's there to like help out with a clogged toilet or something early on. He ends up stuck there, trapped in the club as the event, crumbles, and then the zombie threat that is outside. His character has an arc, which is impressive. You can tell he's listening to like this podcast at the beginning, so you can kind of see where some of his political leanings are without getting into any specifics. I'm registered independent, by the way, so I'm not really going to throw anything one way or the other in that regard. But his character does have kind of I'm not going to say Paul on the road to Damascus or anything, because that would be way too on the right-leaning side of things. But and he has some realizations and some impressive tolerances that are developed over the course of the story. And so he's amusing. I mean, I already mentioned Scrumptious as my favorite character, the one that really brought the most amusement, because for me, that character was written in an interesting fashion, because it showed the fact that even in a scene that, champions, acceptance and inclusion and everything, there is still a bit of gatekeeping, a bit of elitism, I guess, within the drag scene, because that character, the character of Scrumptious, at one point, who is like this Latino from the I'm trying to remember if the character was from the Bronx or whatever, but as that character kind of shifts out of the performative, much more like Queen sort of voice at times, into a less performative, more like, still talking with a little bit of Pris, but there's a really great dramatic scene from that character talking about how they felt like they just couldn't really get acceptance from some of like the old guard of performers and felt disrespected by it. So that was where those are, I've mentioned all the laughs and everything, but those are some really impressive bits of performance from that character, as well as even the arc with Sam, in the fact that Sam Samonse has left the scene because stage fright burned some bridges. That's why Sam is working with Dre's wife at the hospital and not performing anymore, and just kind of losing the train of thought, unfortunately, because I don't want to spoil too much. But Sam's character just kind of pissed some people off, most notably Dre, and then coming back and still having some of those fears, and yet how there is also there's a necessary respect for those who have kind of the trailblazers from before, and just the dichotomy of all of this. Like, the film went a lot deeper than I was expecting it to, because I mean, when we're starting out with a catchy song and just and I want to segue into just music and production design as I'm rounding this, because I feel like I just went on and on at this point about how much I enjoyed the writing and the performances. Like, the character of like Sam was great, because Sam has a lot of and I'm trying to remember if that was, I know I've seen that actor in things before, I just can't pinpoint it, but when we do have the dramatic beats from the characters in the A story, as I mentioned, that's where it worked a lot more. So aside from, there is one poignant scene between our transitioning character and Dre's wife about why they ended up in the hospital in the first place. So we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, acting was great, and the writing helped because even the more minor characters like Scrumptious were developed so well. But this being lower budget, I guess I want to get right out the gate. Well, it's not right out the gate, but just right off the bat that this is not a gory sort of. You're not going to see anything wild like Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, or even some of the more choice bits in Land. Even though I didn't like Land of the Dead very much, it did have some solid gore. There's a scene with a drill that I guess is maybe the marquee thing in this, but this is not a bloody, gory sort of zombie movie. Some of the wounds actually look pretty good when characters get attacked, but even that doesn't happen a ton. So the movie really shines from the fabulousness of the costuming from our drag performers. The makeup, the hair, the costuming, all of that is where. And here I've been to Cruisin' 7 and a number of other places where I've seen a lot of drag performances here in the Phoenix area, and this was top notch. This was RuPaul's Drag Race has become such a big mainstream straight sort of even appreciative thing at that particular point. But everything was top notch and there's a number of costume changes that go on with a few characters, especially when they have to be first responders, and it was so funny. All of that is top notch. The makeup on the zombies, the quality of gore with kills, that's where, hey, I'm not gonna just praise and praise you like I should. It's not just gonna be a complete gush fest. I always try to objectively approach this and say, with my, journalistic background in film and media studies at Arizona State, I'm going to praise the things that I thought were great. And then also, you want to be as objective as possible. And so, I thought that the horror of the storytelling was a bit lacking, but that doesn't really feel like this is a love letter in a lot of ways to this scene and to not only the struggles of, those who don't respect these sort of performers and just the bigotry and the hatred that comes from a particular contingent of society for them, but just back to the fact that I thought it was really interesting, the fact that not so much the infighting, but I feel like the gatekeeping back to that, but it's much more so a commentary on the drag scene in a lot of ways, but yet with a lot of fun horror flair. And the music in this is great, man. You get some Kesha at the beginning, as I mentioned, but there's some Scissor Sisters in there. The score has some great, just synthy sort of stuff, which really, it complemented this whole, pinkish, purplish, neon sort of setting of Club Yum, which I really appreciated. And I'm paraphrasing at this point. There's a particular character, a lovely character as well, that is the love interest of the Margaret Cho character who shows up. So, who I thought there is some headbutting that goes on with that character and their droogs that come along with them that I thought was tonally a bit odd. Margaret Cho's character was not, was kind of an asshole, kind of bitchy in that regard. I guess I'll throw both gender asides, with that. The Margaret Cho character has a love interest that gets an axe in the leg, and they're singing to themselves at one particular point, and it's retrofitted into an end credits song about, there's an axe in my leg or something, which I was dying laughing. It was just so funny and so amusingly done. So, guys, gals, and however you like to be identified as, man, lady, whatever. Sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just a matter of phrase. But Queens of the Dead was a ton of fun. It's not scary. It's not really a full-blown horror movie. It is a celebration of the drag scene from a comedic standpoint that has some horror kind of framing to it and all of that. I greatly enjoyed this, and I think that a lot of queer, straight, whatever, I think that there is a lot of fun to be had. Just don't go in expecting like a full-blown scare fest or anything of that nature, because it's not. But Queens of the Dead was a very, very enjoyable experience for me. So I extend a grande gracias a Jaime and Fuego. You can find Walt on all social media sectors: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Threads, The Talk. Yeah, I mean, most of my stuff over there is of the non-spooktacular variety, and it's just like reels and shorts of non-genre sort of things that aren't on the scarific side. But, you know, most notably, and if you have seen this film already, whether in theaters or whether you caught it on the festival circuit at, like, you know, Fantastic. I know it just recently played there, and it was not available for virtual press like myself and Cecil and everybody. So, yeah, I would love to hear what you guys and gals and everyone else thought about this film. Leave it in the comments below and share and, you know, do all of the things, you know how YouTube works, y'all. So, thank you so very much once again. Donc, arigato, merci, grande gracias, as I say, if you have got to the end of the video, and also to all of our patrons, so greatly appreciated. So, I've been Fuego. Y'all have been fabulous rad status, and until next time, Freight fans, remember, stay scared. As George Romero himself used to say as well, because I got to interview him once, and it was one of the greatest moments of my journalistic career. R.I.P.